That's why it really is good to like record yourself and go back and look, even if you are getting coaching, because sometimes you think you're in a position, and you realize you're not even close. Like that's happened to me a few times, or I think I look one way and then I go back and look, and it's gone both directions where it's like I look worse than I think I do, and sometimes I look better than I think I do. Especially when I'm lifting heavy, I'm like, oh, dude, Nate, you're kind of being a baby. You should definitely put more weight on because it'll be something I fly through, and I think it feels like I'm sticky, and I'm really not sticky. So it can go either direction, positive or negative, and then a correction. All right. I want to kick off since Jose sent in that the bike one. I think we're gonna go row, bike, and run. We have like almost all our monostructurals on here, so we'll hit all of them. But since Jose brought up the bike and sent that in, I think that was a great video because it's something that I would call it like a caveman. Like if I was coaching class, like I don't have to put an emphasis on teaching people the bike, and because it's such a simple implement, we don't really talk about it very often, unless the workout is like purely bike intervals, maybe. Jose, I'm gonna let you lead it off and what like you learned and the tweaks you made on your bike, and then if there's anything, I'll fill the gaps on like
Yeah.
setup and teaching people how. And we're
Okay,
talking
so
like with the handles like eco or assault bike.
how do I teach it? So what I do is like first one, the setup is like I would ask them to sit and be just slightly bending the knees and reaching the one that is like the slightly bending. Or the other one is like, hey, you want to know what, 45 degrees with your hip, and that should be the the sitting. That should be the level. The other one that
Like
I would, yeah, the other one, um, it's like I want only you to move the arms and the legs and keep your torso straight all the time, not doing this thing, and chest up. So allow yourself to breathe in. That would be like the three things too, like the setup and then
your
how
good
you move.
points.
The thing that
Hey,
I noticed this one was like I started to doing like in the number five, but then because really my genitals, that was the thing. I put it down to be more comfortable without knowing that he was telling me when you put like lower,
you're squatting
your knee
deeper.
goes your knee goes up, and this one hold breaks the pedal that is up while you are pushing to the one that it's down. So he
To kind
showed
of
me,
get like up and over almost.
yeah. So it's like your leg has to get like he said, like your leg has to go all the way up, and this one holds the pedal while the other one is pushing. And I'm
That
like,
makes
okay, that
sense. You
makes
guys ever see
sense.
them in those like huge machines? I think like in the Titanic, if you watch the Titanic, there's a clip like this, and it's the huge piston, and the piston has to go up and then over before it loops. That's a great point. Biomechanically, I never thought of that. I just viewed it as like, is it easier to do a shallow squat or is it easy or to go really deep in a
And
squat? So I
exactly.
mean,
So
from
that's
both points,
what he did. Instead of being this, just going like shallow like this would be
only up and down.
yeah, more fluid. And then I tried it, and lower I got to 90 pushing, and the other one I went 90 like even like without really pushing. It's like,
Way
okay,
easier.
this really is objectively I can see it. So it was
Made
like, okay, I need to record it
made
and
yourself
send.
a lot more efficient, basically.
Right.
So spot on with the setup, those three things. So if you're like in a pinch teaching it in class, you can have people just stand by the seat and they can put the seat where their hip is, and that'll put them in a pretty good spot. If you have the time, do what Jose has them do definitely in pedal and like have that slight knee bend. It only has to be slight. So like if someone was doing a good morning, that little bit of softness is like a good example of what you would look for there. Chest upright, that was beautiful. Making sure that the width away is not going to have someone twist and turn because you want to be equally pushing and pulling. There's one more tiny thing that I would add in there. All that is perfectly correct. One more thing you're doing with your body.
Where your foot is on the pedal?
Not what I
Like,
was thinking, but that brings me to another point. Um,
I,
ball of
I
foot
feel
on the pedal. You guys can cheat, and I do this sometimes when I'm fatiguing and my quads are blowing up. I put my like midfoot on the pedal, and it'll kind of get the glute and hamstring to help a little bit extra. But you have to set the seat up so you're able to do that, so you don't run out of space. I don't know if that's just in my head that it makes it easier or not, but it makes sense if glute activation, posterior chain with weight in the heels. That's where my thought process is there. So foot on the pedal would be one though. Like if someone asked ball of foot, you can think of when someone clips into a bike where they're what that foot is. Think about big people. Why would it be easier for bigger people on the ergs, but more specifically a bike? So if I'm pushing and pulling, right, and I'm pushing and pulling equally, I can do one more thing to make my life easier, and that's keep the posture, but lean into the handles. Right. So the bigger I am, I've got some lean with my push, and I'll just be able to put more power out longer because of body weight. That's why I said like bigger is a good hint on that. Let's pull up the videos. Let's get moving on this now. All right, this is the lower one. We're gonna just touch base on this to take a quick look at Jose. I think this is the lower one. Yeah. So like positionally, I took a glance at this before we went. Really, really good. Like torso's tall. You have a good push and pull with it, Jose. But the knee thing, we'll look at the second video. You can definitely see the difference when I play this one. Hold on. I shared the wrong one. There we go. You guys see the difference in the knee?
mm-hmm.
Pretty simple stuff. Giving athletes these tips, and then especially you guys that want to compete, I do think this makes a big difference when you focus on it. And something that helps me, like last week we talked about some of the breathing and like being very mindful when you're breathing on things like wall balls and stuff like that, and it can kind of take your mind, give it something positive to think about versus like I'm dying on this wall ball. I find the same thing personally on the bike. So if you guys are on the bike and you're like, okay, I'm gonna sit up, I'm gonna lean into the handles, I'm gonna try to have an equal push and pull, and pedal, and everything is working well. I find it makes me have like a positive focus while I'm on it versus like a negative focus while I'm on it. So teaching people that, trying to do that yourself, I think can go a long way. Um, any
Do you have
comments on
a
that?
do you have a breathing pattern that you use on the bike at all? Or would it even change based on
Nothing.
the number of
There's
calories you're
nothing
doing?
off. There's nothing off the top of my head that I think of. I don't know if you talk to someone who was a cyclist if they would have like a breathing pattern. Like this is something I'm not educated on. But while I am like especially on those bikes, I'm trying to be very equal with all my power. Like obviously my legs are going to give off a lot more than my arms physically can, but I want to make sure that I'm having everything work, and because everything's working, there's no like rest time, like if you were on a barbell and just standing tall, or if you threw that wall ball and were standing there. So it's just a constant, I would say, a constant and trying not to hyperventilate. But then that also comes down to, is it a sprint interval that I'm doing that's very aggressive, or is it like a 50 cal that I need to pace? So like the pacing comes into play, I think, as well. Something to look up. If anybody wants to look that up, I'll try to find breathing on the bikes. Has anybody ever heard of that? All right, I have some homework. We'll find out, Justin. All right, let's go. Let's go our other monostructural. Here's a run. Do a slow-mo run.
Synchronized.
Oh yeah, she is actually synchronized back there. Andrea running. That's a big deal. What do you guys think?
So you know what? On like normal pace, this is Ivan. Ivan looked like he wasn't really pushing. And the other thing is that with the slow-mo, I didn't know how impact is in the hip. Like you could see like every step is boom, boom. I didn't notice that until I
Like
took it
how
every turn.
much like the body actually takes there.
You really push and drag. Yeah. But I recorded him because it looked like he was doing small steps. But once you put it in slow-mo, it really looks like
Really not.
yeah, he's going forward, drags. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really not at all. There's some stuff I really like about it. Look at his feet. What do you guys notice about that?
Midfoot. He's
Yeah,
striking midfoot.
he strikes midfoot. I wouldn't unless he was trying to become maybe like an elite runner or like do marathons and like was really bought in. I don't think I would mess with that. I don't mind midfoot. I think like me personally, it works better for me to think midfoot than like a ball heel strike. So I think it's one of those things that you can kind of find what works for each person. And even in like the running world, you hear some coaches teach a midfoot and you hear some coaches teach that ball of foot and relax. So it's almost like Olympic weightlifting and like stylistic in a way. Um, I think anatomically and just like biomechanics, it's ball of foot and probably relax because if you think of the Achilles heel, it puts that more into the Achilles tendon. It puts that more into like play of being like springy. But I like his foot strike. What look at his pull. That's where I would try to change something. What do you guys think about the pull of his leg off the ground?
It doesn't look like he's pulling the heel up, so I'm not sure how much he's using his hamstrings.
Yeah, he's using hip flexors. You're spot on. Hip flexors and pulling the leg forward. Which like if you guys remember when we talked about running, much smaller muscle group going to fatigue a lot faster and run into some issues. So he lets that foot kind of drag and then he's got to bring it back into place and pull instead of like you were saying, Justin, that the hamstring pulling it, you would see his heel almost go like more directly vertical under his butt rather than behind his butt and then forward. What what would need to change for him to correct that though? This is kind of a hard question. Besides him thinking of how he's going to pull his foot, what else would need to change with the run?
Maybe him leaning a little bit more forward.
That would help because it's going to make him go faster. So it may fix the problem. His cadence. So if you're like obviously this is slow mo and he's not sprinting, but if you watch him, it's step, step, step versus if he pulls that foot a lot sooner, it's going to be a lot more under him, and therefore it starts to become a hamstring pull. So his cadence and his strikes maybe are 60 steps a minute right now versus like a good runner, not even an elite runner, is like a 120. So it goes to show like a good runner how much faster they're running and their feet are striking the ground. Does that make sense? Versus it lags and then it's got to get pulled forward. It lags and it's got to get pulled forward. Does that make sense to you guys?
I guess I just have a hard time seeing it because I would like to see a side by side of the bad and then the good one. You
Oh, like
know?
if he was doing it. Oh, I get what you mean. Yeah, and I mean that's all. I would say running. How many of you guys have actively engaged in like coached running?
I mean, I try every now and then.
Right? Occasionally. So like if you put a number on it, you could probably count on your hand,
Yeah.
right? So it's like if we look at running, like I've done it a handful of times as well. It's like the first time we saw someone snatch, you're like, oh, something's weird. I don't know exactly what it is yet. So I think just like being exposed over and over is an important thing for something like this. But yeah, a side by side I think would definitely help. Why did I say like if he Dion said if he leans more forward? Could that, why would I say that could help it? What would that make him mean?
And increase the cadence, it will be like a higher
He would
speed.
start to go faster because of the lean, and it would force him to create a faster cadence. Does that make sense? Cool. Stop. Can you guys hear the dogs?
Very little.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's way louder here than I think it is for you guys.
So
Okay.
Nate, I have a question then.
Go ahead, Justin.
So you said a faster runner would be doing more steps per
Not necessarily
minute.
more steps, but more of a lean. Because
Okay, just
gravity
more.
would be pushing them. Yeah. They would be forced to have a faster cadence. Because like if you like simply break down running, like what's a really like really good elite runner with like good technique we're talking here. What's actually propelling them? It's just gravity. They're falling the entire time. Why are they not falling to the floor? Because their feet are supporting themselves so they don't fall, but gravity's actually pushing them along. So if you break it down, like what's running, the hamstrings are pulling the feet off the ground. We want to use the hamstrings because the hamstrings are a large muscle group and they don't fatigue out like the hip flexors do in his case. So like that's why faster would be a more of a lean, but would force more strikes to the ground. If you guys have play with this because it'll blow your mind. If you guys have a watch, like I don't know if an Apple Watch will do it, but I know if you have like a Garmin, especially the ones for running, they'll tell you what the cadence is as long as you're with your pace and all these types of things. Um, Go outside and play with that. It's crazy. Like the first time I heard it's like a 120 to 140 steps a minute. I was like, oh, I'm somewhere around there for sure. I was at like 53. And then I tried to get up into the hundreds, and I felt like I was going to implode. Like it's pretty incredible what like really good runners do. Does that
Yeah,
answer your question
I,
pretty good, Justin?
I have here in my notes actually, it says average should be 165 steps by minute, the optimal 180 because it gives more elasticity to the muscle tendon.
So even
That's
faster
the
than I had.
reason. That's the, yeah, I don't remember this.
The elasticity, like we talked about, like that Achilles tendon and that whole like structure. Like if you look at the foot, it's got all these little muscles, and then it's just got all these little tendons and ligaments everywhere. That's that springiness, basically. Let's look at another running since we're fresh on the topic. That pole is just perfectly put, huh?
She's almost like leaning backwards.
Yeah. Super different runner. Like if we're
Different.
looking at her technique, definitely a different runner.
Heel
Like
striking.
not caring about speed. Like that's my number one thing right there.
Her arms are like crossing out in front, pretty big. A lot of
That's
shoulder shift.
that's killing her. Like that'll kill her too. Right. There's like that lack we talk about. There is still a core engagement that goes on with running. Really disengaged core. If I had to guess and I went and like made her do a some kind of 5K or like 10K, run, not something crazy, I would almost guess that something ankle, knee, hips, lower back would probably not feel good at all by the time she was done based on her running technique.
Her ankles are also are always a problem. That's,
Problem
yeah.
when she runs specifically.
In anything, it's like even in squats, she always complains like, no, I cannot, I don't really have elasticity here,
So,
flexibility.
very like likely with her, she may be running and heel striking because she's super ginger. Like, do you guys know what I mean by ginger? It's like a term
No.
my grandmother used to use. Like, I figured someone didn't know. Like, well, how would I describe ginger? If I
Like
went
delicate.
delicate, yeah. Like if I had an injury and I went did day one of Wadapalooza and my injury was really flared up and like my knees were achy and like everything just kind of hurt and I had to go sprint like those and I wasn't maybe uber warm those first few steps how you would imagine I would be kind of like that may be a little bit of why she might want to revert to like a run like this. Like she just may not be, like Jose said, like that elasticity and really utilizing ankle flexion may not feel good to her. So when she does go ball of foot strike, it just may feel not great. Like maybe not pain, but discomfort. Um, I would address though, like Deanna said, I would for sure try to get her to probably just do a midfoot. I wouldn't try to get her to do like a ball of foot because then I have the hunch that she may stay really tense and then blow her calves up really bad too, instead of strike and relax immediately. Um, for the core thing, let's say like you worked with her running, she got it pretty good. She's midfoot striking consistently for a decent amount of distance, and Holly brought up her arms were just flailing everywhere. What would you guys? What's a good drill you guys could give her to like quiet that down without being like make your abs tight? Because like I don't know if you've ever tried that. It's really weird when you run.
Perhaps where her hand is directing, like when she's doing like this, maybe try to tell her to, I don't know, face forward.
Yeah, I'm telling them like in the warm up, I'm
Yeah.
telling from cheek to cheek,
Yeah.
from cheek to
Now
cheek.
what the hands are doing are a big one. So not like you're excited to
Right.
go to the buffet, but like ear to pocket running. Sprinters get taught ear to pocket as they're going too. There's for like long distance runners. Have you ever heard like the coin thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll hold like a couple pennies or something in between, and basically what it is they get too crazy, they'll throw one. So it's like imagine you're holding like some change in between your fingers, and it makes you have this much more gentle, not flailing around run too. So that would be a good cue, either cue, just like ear to pocket hands a little bit more, or like imagine you're holding that change. That was good job with that one, guys. That was solid. All right, enough running. Anything to add while I pull up the next video? All right, Justin. Finally, it's been 9 weeks since I got this one. Long complex. I like ones like this because as a coach, you get these times where it's like you have all this stuff going on, and you're like, maybe I got something in all of them, but what are you can't give Justin everything at one time. What are you guys going to address first? I'll play it one more time.
I would go out with like the shoulders in every setup position before like
Just
so do the lever to
focus
pull it back.
starts. Let's pin up on that. I like this spot. Would you guys change that at all?
No.
Yeah.
And his
I don't
arms are locked in, his lats are locked.
yeah, I think that's super solid. Like I don't think I would change really anything. If I wanted to get, let me see one more thing. Really good. Watch his feet real quick. Like solid as can be.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to get like Dr. Horshig at Squat University on Justin, he's so good at like keeping a flat foot. He's someone I would trust. Like, let's also pin those toes into the ground. So now it's like a full tripod of pressure. I rarely tell somebody that because what's gonna happen?
You're gonna get
They're gonna
toesy.
they're gonna get toesy and they're gonna go forward. But he looks so locked in here that I'm like, if there was something like he's an A minus right now, if I was trying to make this an A plus of setup, that's how I'm gonna go from a 93% to a 97%. Right. So like super small, like salt and pepper. Wouldn't say nothing about that today though. Like that's you know, something if he was doing just only clean pulls that I would maybe have him focus on. Let's go to the shoulders. Jose, I think you're spot on. He's still super engaged, like with the lats. Feet are still super flat. I love all of that. What cue would you give him to be in a little bit of a better start position here?
Lean forward a little bit, or straighten up his legs and lean forward a little bit.
Yeah, have
It's
more
like-
of a bow.
Yeah, you like he rebent his knees in front instead of having him
Yeah, so
back in that deadlift position.
yeah, if those knees, like both you girls have said, if those knees are slightly more back, he's going to be more bent over, and the shoulders are going to be slightly in front of the bar, and we have more of that hip closure. So the angle is just slightly off. So with Jose's cue, let's just start static positions. That is gonna be the easiest. I can tell him to work on this and still probably give him something dynamic on top of it. Let's watch the other ones real quick. Yeah, very similar. All of those are. And then we know his start position there. All right. So Justin fixed his start position. Bigger meat and potatoes here. What would be the next thing?
I just feel like he's pulling more with his arms than pushing through his feet.
Yeah, there's something funky about it.
Yeah.
You're someone, Justin, that like if you were in class and I was walking by you and I was watching you, I would probably watch you twice.
Because if you look at his knees, they're still bent, even though he looks extended, but his knees are still bent.
I have a follow-up based on what you just said there, Holly, a follow-up question that only you can probably answer, Justin. Do you remember this exact complex? What was it?
Shrug, high pull, hang clean and power clean and hang and then clean.
Okay.
There are squats.
The reason I was asking that, and like I think part of the reason it makes me hesitate, I wanted to know if there was a panda pull in there. Do you guys know what a panda pull is?
Oh yeah,
So
I've heard of it.
a panda pull, I'm gonna do my best. I can really only do it with weight on the bar. It's very hard to not. So it's like if you were gonna do a clean pull, you would extend everything, finish tall, and here's your pull, and you're done. A panda pull is you're getting to that same point, but you're now changing directions. So it's just it's practicing on like getting the extension completely done and not doing the whole clean, but getting good at the change of direction that you need to then get under the bar. You see a lot of especially I think it's the Chinese that do a ton of those. They do panda pulls, I think, more than they'd ever do like clean pulls. That's why I was asking, and like based on what Holly sees on that rebend and that like softness, I didn't know if you were trying to mimic that or if you were trying to hit a clean pull. Because we know it's a clean pull, Holly, you're spot on. I would immediately focus on really that one's pretty
think
good.
It's good.
Something
Yeah.
else that I would say is for him to look up instead of down. Because even
Like with his actual eyes.
Because when he does the pull, it's kind of a little bit too straight instead of him having his shoulders behind the bar. See?
Yeah, like straight up.
Mm-hmm.
So like looking at his extension, my first initial thought in real time was that he wasn't finishing. But then like I stopped that
And
and
it seems so.
and he is like he's extended there. The shrug, I think maybe he's going a little bit early. It's hard to see because the plate
Maybe
gets in the
that's
way. But you know what I think it is, Justin, when you lift, let's see if you guys get it. This is tough, and I don't even know if this is the right answer. Watch his arms real quick. Is there anything you guys would say with his arms? Like there's just something that looks a little off, right? Do you guys agree with me there?
Yeah.
almost like a little bit of hyperextension, maybe.
I would say that the lats disengage at some point and like pull the barbell pulls him.
It's the lats. I agree with Jose here.
And I agree with that too, because my lats are like one of my nemesis on my body, and it's like my lats and my glutes are just sleepy all the time, and they do not want to work. So if we could
They get
blame it on the
lazy.
lats, we'll blame it on the lats.
So I think awesome in the setup, they get locked in. I don't think it stays. Like I think if I walked in front of Justin and I grabbed that bar and I pulled it away from him this way, it would be very easy to pull it from him. Versus while he's lifting, having that bar and tension back and the bar is being pulled in. I think that's what the weirdness is that we see.
Yeah, like the shoulder is internally rotated just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, and that's why I said I think I need to walk by and watch him a couple times before I can figure this one out. Like, it's not. I don't think that's something that you see. It happens often, but there's usually bigger stuff happening with it versus a lot of this other stuff happens, and I almost have to do like, and it's okay for you guys to always do this like a checklist. Like, I'm only watching hips. I'm only watching, each body part until I find, oh, that's the problem child. Yeah, so I think the engagement of pulling back with the lats is a big one. Watch when he actually cleans. Like you can see it looks different suddenly. Did you guys notice that?
Oh, the clean looks like actually pretty nice.
The clean all of a sudden is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's slow because I think you can see it a little bit maybe. But the clean does look like a totally different lift than
Yeah.
those other hangs. Maybe a smidge away from the body. And I mean like
Yeah.
in real speed would probably need to see 5 or 6 reps if I couldn't slow-mo it.
But again,
That would
that's
be a
what's gonna make him, I'm sorry. I was gonna say that
Yeah,
might be
go.
makes him jump backwards, right? You set bars coming out and he's jumping backwards.
It depends.
Mhm.
He doesn't loop the bar. If he like looped the bar out, it could be the reverse and pull him forward.
Right, no, but he's jumping back, and so maybe that's
The
why that
jump-
space is there.
Oh, I get what you mean. Yeah, you're not wrong with that. I was misinterpreting what you were saying. The jump happens because he does extend really well, and then the pull like almost has like a millisecond delay, and that's why the body moves and the bar like doesn't. But if the bar traveled with him and we need the bar to travel with him back, what is it still?
So close.
Still pulling that bar and having that like press down engagement with it. Does that make sense? Because the lat is engaged and not pulling the bar like into the body, when he extends and he has that jump back, which I don't mind, but I need the bar to go with him, that press down would have that bar travel with him. Not a maximal load here, obviously, because he did like a 10 rep complex. But if this was like a 1 rep max clean, where do you usually fail, Justin?
No, sorry. On the pull, on
Like
the
getting,
I mean, I can't always get it. I can't even get underneath it a lot because I'm just not pulling high enough.
Well, it just emailed Amy back.
when you go to rack it, do you sometimes miss and it like gets racked low on your shoulders?
Say it again.
Like when you go to rack it, does it sometimes like miss and get racked low on your shoulders, or you get it racked and it's like almost pulling you forward?
I mean, a lot of times I just won't even get it up to my shoulders. I just can't even get underneath it.
So
Like, I'm not pulling it high enough.
Okay. The gap, like why I bring that up is like to Holly's point, like he has that shift back, but now we have this gap and that bar's in front. That's going to make it increasingly harder too to get it racked. And now like we don't have that bar in our frontal plane. It's out here and we have to like go to it. And sometimes that'll prompt a lot of problems. Setup's great. Hip extension's great. I think just the lats. Have you guys ever seen the band where someone puts like a band on the rig and they put the band on like the PVC pipe or like the barbell and the band's pulling the bar away from their body? and they'll like deadlift or they'll do like clean pulls with it. I'll send that. So it's like that. It's just like an accessory worker, like a drill. And basically the band's trying to pull the bar away from the body. So you actively have to have like your lats engaged and pulling it back down. It's just a good like warm up drill, or if you're doing like clean or snatch pulls very light with it, it would be a cool implement. I'll send it in the group afterward because I think I have a video doing it even. All right, changing gears. Handstand walk. Man, it must be cold in South Florida. At least has pants on. Probably like 65.
So when is he gonna do, he said that he was gonna send a check on Monday, so what are we doing with that?
You guys should have a takeaway by now. Anything?
It's the same thing that happens to me.
What
Yeah, I was
happened
gonna
to
say
you?
she has some similarities with Jose, where Elise
Okay,
and
go
Jose
first.
both have great shoulder position, and that allows them to stay stacked more. And then both Jose and Elise also, they're keeping some midline activation, which is some good things because she's not like excessively banana backing. So I'm assuming she's got something engaged in there.
I think Mike is telling her even what I'm thinking right now. What don't you like? Because I agree, like shoulders, they're maybe a little closed off, but I don't know. I don't know if she has it totally, and she's not like fully scorpioning.
Mm-hmm.
I think from her like hips up though, it's not bad, but those legs are just like there. I don't think she's like actively engaged or thinking real hard about like what tension she has in her lower body. And I think I don't know what Micah says here, but she points up to the sky. I think she's trying to tell her to like get more stiff up there, basically. Because then if you watch Elisa's kick up here, she suddenly goes way too far, and like the reverse side effect goes.
So the cue that works for me, it's lead with the heels. Lead with your heels. So I think about my heels should be way ahead of me, and if I record myself, they are not. They are. I'm still like kind of stuck, but that's the lever that I need to keep advancing because I don't know, the legs suddenly comes back.
It's just like running, right? Like, why are people handstand walking? It's because they're slightly following. There's a little more mass on the front side of their body for them to walk and go, right? It sounds scary because we don't want to accidentally handstand run so we don't fall. But like if you look at her here and like these first couple, right? She kicks up, she gets a couple of steps in, but then she loses momentum and doesn't continue her walk. If you when she slows it, if you like stop her, like she took a couple steps, she got some momentum, and then she came to this like lag and lull again. Like if you took her body and say, where is there more mass right now? And you took her heels and you went straight down to the floor. What does she have on this side of that frontal plane? She has her heels and her fingertips. What does she have on that side of the frontal plane? Her whole abdomen and hips, right? So I think that's why she struggles on like gaining momentum and actually moving through a handstand walk. She's got nothing like pulling her that way. Because when we walk, I don't know, maybe besides like Daniel Brandon, it's not like you're grabbing the floor and ripping it, right? It's just how fast are you falling and how fast are you moving. So I think if she got a little more tension in the legs and like Micah gave her that cue to try to like get up and she tried to get like tall, I think she would hang a little bit more. Does that make sense? Like I tell people if you looked up at the roof, like not straight above you, but something that was maybe like a 20 or 30-degree angle in front of you, try to get tension and reach for that with your feet. And typically that'll put them on the side they need to go and it kind of propels them. Makes
And I
sense
think
to
it's
you?
part of psychology that you are afraid of falling because like
Yeah, you don't want to crack
different
your head open.
different coaches have different styles, and one just like yell at me, get out of your mind and just pull that, just like up there, and like okay, so I throw your legs, and then okay, I'm just gonna throw my legs in front, and then I started like walking faster and faster.
And sometimes like, you're a good athlete, so giving you the bump, I'm confident you're not going to just flip and just back plant it, right? So sometimes like needing that bump is an important thing, but then like other times it's not. Like you ever have somebody that can jump on a box, yelling at them to jump on the box if they're scared is not gonna work. Like there's no chance.
Or
So it's just
handstand, or just doing handstand.
it
If you're
really is the
scared, you're gonna fall.
psychology of it. Some of like the best things that I've done with people is just building them slow and like really trying to give them time to gain confidence upside down with like the wall being very close. So if they do overkick it, they're fine. Nothing happens. Um, have you guys seen like the PVC pipe spot?
Yeah.
I've seen that one work really well. I've seen that one not work well. I've seen people go right through the PVC and break the PVC pipe. So be a little mindful of like ones like that. I know Deanna, you've taken the gymnastics course. Is anybody else here taking the gymnastics course? So they teach a spot that I would say is the safest one, and I think it's in part liability for them. And it also works really well if you have somebody that's not super comfortable getting upside down and they're very new to it, and they'll spot the thigh. So you'll have two athletes on both sides. Like as Elise kicks up, there'll be a lead athlete. If I was the lead athlete, I would have her leg that is going to be doing the kicking, and she would be like into like a downward dog almost. And I would say 3, 2, 1, go. I would go with her. I have her thigh, and then my secondary spot would just like back me and grab her other thigh. I think it works really good for people that aren't used to being upside down, especially like on like a freestand type deal. But I think like if you took somebody, that is pretty comfortable with walking or holding, it's weird because you're trying to find where you need to be in space and someone's touching you, and it kind of throws you off. So I think really just using like all the plethora of drills that you've seen and learned, each person kind of responds something a little different. Where my tangent's getting at.
Also, one thing that I have noticed, even like with myself and other athletes, is that if you hold your breath while you're walking, you won't walk. Like you'll either fall or just like kind of get stuck. So, something that I've had to kind of teach myself and others is to try to kind of not lose tension, but kind of relax almost and try to breathe through it so you can just kind of just not get stuck, really.
And I think people like hold their breath too because they're trying to get tension. And
Right,
it's such
right.
a yeah, it's so
It's a
foreign
lot
to
of
them.
coordination, with the breathing, with the walking, try not to fall, all of that.
That's a really good point too. And like, have you guys seen where coaches will take athletes and they put athletes like on the wall, and it's like their handstand looks amazing? Or have you ever seen the one where they're laying face down on the floor? It's really weird. I did this in class one time. I don't recommend it because everyone thought it was the weirdest thing in the world. But they'll lay on the floor and their hands are on the wall. So it's like the wall is their floor for the handstand. And then from there, you just place them into body positions and
I
you
do
help
that
them
for
gain.
warm up. Yeah.
Seen that? You help them gain tension. And you're using the floor as a tactile cue in a straight line and a level, because I think part of the thing with being upside down is, am I really straight and stacked or am I not? So they use that, but like stuff like that's a really good time to have someone like squeeze your legs, squeeze your butt, squeeze your calves, point the toes, make the belly tight, like drive through the wall and all this tension, but don't forget to breathe and continue that tight breath. So a lot of times people just skip over that and then they're like, but how do you breathe? Well, they never took like some baby steps that these people that are really good at it took. Justin, do you have anything to add? Because like I think you have a very different point of view coming from yoga than like I do from CrossFit. Would you throw anything else in there that I don't know?
Yeah, they are very different kind of handstand styles. And the handstands that I kind of utilize are more of a gymnastic base. But I'm not trying to walk either. So I'm striving for more of a stacked position versus when we're walking our hands. We are intentionally trying to take the legs over, like Jose said, lead with the heels kind of thing. I think the one thing, and this is like coming from watching a lot of like the top athletes do it, is that they may be taking the heels over, but they're still trying to stack from their hands to their shoulders to their hips. And like even Danielle Brandon, well, she's not really scorpion. She's just bending her knees and taking her
He just
heels.
bends her knees. Yeah.
You'll see like some of the guys that just muscle their way through it. They're having this big banana back and they're just fatiguing out their shoulders way faster than like what Danielle Brandon's doing. So I think like that body line drill that you said using the floor and what Jose is doing with the hands against the wall, I think that's good. When I teach my handstand workshops, I do something similar. I don't use a wall for the hands, but I do take us on the floor and I try to get that feeling of what it's like to be in a straight line and feel everything stacked. The other thing that I try to do is to try to create that straight line handstand. There is more of a posterior tilt of the pelvis, especially for like you can look at any athlete that has that lordosis thing going on. You got to kind of fight that out. Otherwise, those are going to be the athletes that are going to be always fearing falling over because they're already got
Or
like
the
a
wrong
lot
way.
of going that direction. So it's just like ribs in and down, glutes squeezing, tailbone drawing either under or at least draw your tailbone down.
And I think too, like building on that, something that's really important that even like there was a point in time where I had like a light bulb moment is the hollow that we do on the floor for an exercise and a core drill is not the hollow that we use when we're upside down, like doing a handstand, right? It is a tenth of what you've got like banana wise on the floor. Like it's the same compression and tension, but not to where you look like a bowl. So there was a moment like I remember like how the hell is it a hollow and people are stacked? And it was just the hollow's too over exaggerated when we do it on the floor in CrossFit, basically. Great for core stability and core building. And then like when we look at our kip swing on a bar, obviously you can see it in application really well there. But hollow position is very, very, very small. It's just really a lot of tension. So that's a good point. There's another one too. I just remembered that I used to do. I haven't done in years. Instead of putting people on the floor, give them a plate and they can hold a plate overhead. And then it just makes it way easier for people to like feel involved because they can see you walking around the room correcting people. They're not allowed to hold it. They have to go hands flat on it. The hard part is the plate is very narrow. So the people that are going to get into a good position have awesome shoulder flexion. Otherwise, you're going to have people like Justin was talking about that are doing that big old hyperextension going on as well. But I like that one more than laying on the floor just because people see you walking around adjusting and coaching people, and then they're like, "Oh, I got to do a good job, coach is close." Versus if you're face down on the floor, you can't always see well. And if I'm on the other end, someone's just going to be like laying down with their head flat or something, not really focusing. Anything else to add or thoughts you guys want to throw on that? All right. We're kind of close. We're at 106. We can call it a day and wrap things up. I still got a bunch of videos. Melu, I have a video of you. I have a couple videos of you on here too. So we'll get those in next week if you're on. And other than that, anything you guys want to throw out there before we wrap it up? Solid session today, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and send the articles now because I keep doing a bad job and sending them very late. So I'll send what we're gonna do next week in like the next 20 minutes, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Bye.
See y'all.